Tim Keller is a minister in New York City. Probably one of the most well-known ministers currently in New York City. And next to Jim Cymbala and some others that are there, Tim's very well known. He was speaking at a series of men's breakfasts on the 7 deadly sins. Some of you don't even know what the 7 deadly sins are. Some of you from a Catholic background, I think, refer to them as the 7 venial sins. But here they are. I'll just capsulize them for you. The 7 deadly sins: pride, number 1, excessive belief in one's own abilities that interferes with the recognition of the grace of God. It's called the sin from which all other sin arise. Number 2, envy is the desire for other people's traits, status, abilities, or situation. Gluttony is an inordinate desire to consume more than which one requires. Number 4, lust is an inordinate craving for the pleasures of the body. Number 5, anger is manifested in the individual who spurns love and opts instead for fury. What a phrase. You spurn love and opt for fury. It's also known as wrath. Number 6, sloth, laziness, and avoidance of physical or spiritual work. And then the last one, greed. Greed is the desire for material wealth or gain, ignoring the realm of the spiritual. Ignoring the realm of the spiritual. Now, here's what the story is with Tim Keller. Tim's telling his wife, I'm going to be preaching for 7 men's prayer breakfast, weekly prayer breakfast on these subjects. And she said, are you going to announce ahead of time which topic you're talking about? And he said, yeah, why? She said, mark my words, when you speak about greed, you will have the lowest attendance of all 7. He thought that was silly. No, it's not going to happen. It was the lowest attendance. For this reason, you see, greed is something we see in our brother-in-law or sister-in-law. We see it in our brothers and sisters. We see greed in a lot of people around us at work, but nobody sees it in themselves. You don't, neither do I. And yet the subject of greed is something that the Apostle Paul deals in his message to a young minister named Timothy. Next week, I'm going to preach the last of the series called Blueprint, talking about the blueprint for the church out of 1 Timothy. But today, the second to the last message, Paul's final words to Timothy in the last chapter of 1 Timothy, he talks about money. The most sensitive area in your life is not sex, it's money. We live in a day and age where people hear everything about sexual matters to the latest issue of the day, transgender stuff, and so people are bombarded with that. But anytime you talk about money, people get uncomfortable. People like you, people like me, we get uncomfortable. Here's what Paul, 2,000 years ago, told a young minister named Timothy about his church in a place called Ephesus. Verse 6 of chapter 6, but godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into the world, and we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. People who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap, and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge men into ruin and destruction. The most misquoted verse in all the Bible, verse 10. For the love of money, not money, but the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and have pierced themselves with many griefs. And then verse 17, command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment. Command them to do good, to be rich in good deeds, and to be generous and to share, willing to share. In this way, they will lay up treasure for themselves as a firm foundation for the coming age, so that they may take hold of the life that is truly life. What is it about money that makes people so uncomfortable? It boils down to something Jesus said, in my opinion: you cannot serve both God and money. And isn't it interesting that Jesus said that the gut issue of life for many people, do I serve God and love God with all my heart, soul, and mind? Or privately they're saying, do I love money with all my heart, soul, and mind? And that, folks, I really believe is the issue today. John Ortberg is somebody that some of you may be familiar with. He wrote a book with an interesting title that says it all to me about money. When the game is over, it all goes back in the box. Who remembers playing Monopoly and all those games, and the game's over, and you collect all the money and all the houses and all the hotels, all the things in the game Monopoly, and it all went back in the box. It's a parable for life. When your life is over, it all goes back in the box. You see, there are no pockets in burial clothes, in a shroud, is the old expression. You don't take anything with you other than your relationship to the Lord and your relationship to people, in my opinion. Let's look at verse 7. We brought nothing into the world, and we can take nothing out of it. You know what the problem is with that verse? People live as if they don't believe that. Christian people live as if they can't, that's not true. But we came into the world with only potential and hope, and we leave this world with our destiny. For it's appointed, it is destined for man to die once, the Bible says, and after that, the judgment. That's what we leave this earth with, our destiny. Verse 8 says, if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. And I know many people who say, that's a lie. That's not true. It's not food and clothing, and I'll be content with that. We're not content with anything but just a little bit more. John Ortberg said in his book that most people just want one more thing. And you know what that one more thing is? M-O-R-E, more. We just need one more thing, more. Then I want to focus on verse 9. People who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge men and women into ruin and destruction. I want you to do a little experiment with me. Think of all the stuff that's gone on in your family and extended family that's been negative. Ask yourself this question: what part did money have to do with that? Now, there'll be some things you say money had nothing to do with that problem, and I'll give you that. But so much of the strife, so much of conflict, so much of problems, so much of issues, to use that term, is connected to money. Is connected to money. And you know that, and so do I. I'm going to share with you what I think is the strongest thing I've ever read about money, what money does in people's lives, and it will offend some people. It's not my words. John MacArthur is the author from Panorama City, California. And it's one of those deals, I do this often, where I'm going to read the whole paragraph just so I can read the last line. And it's the last line that I want you to remember. You can forget all the rest of it, even though it's important. But this is the strongest stuff I've ever read about money. People who love money in order to get money will take bribes. Money, or people who love money in order to get money, will distort justice. They will manipulate. They will take advantage of the poor. They will lie. They will cheat. They will extort. They will deceive, steal, and rob. They will abuse. They will commit every sin you can think of: fornication, adultery, if they think it will gain them money. They'll do bodily harm. They will kill for money. Every imaginable category of sin can flow out of loving money, because if you are consumed with the love of money, then that's the driving force of your life. You'll do whatever it takes to get that. But if perchance you're consumed with loving the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, you will set aside anything that thwarts that, and therefore you're on a path of righteousness. You can't serve both God and money. There's no sin excluded from the list of what people might do for the love of money. So if you can deal with the affection for money, you really won the battle. Now, here's the last line that I said. I read all of that just to read this. This was like a slap in the face to me when I read it. Anytime you sin to get money, you betray a heart that loves money more than it loves God. Anytime you and I sin to get money, sin meaning breaking God's law or man's law, we do that in order to get money. We betray a heart that loves money more than it loves God. Wow, what a statement. I believe it's true. I really believe it's true. What's it mean in verse 10? For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. I want you to notice that it doesn't say money is the root of all evil, Nor does it say that money is the root. It's a root. It's just one cause of a lot of evil. I think it's important to point that out. Some people, eager for money, verse 10, have wandered from the faith and have pierced themselves with many griefs. My guess is most men and most women would say, money would never cause me to wander from the faith. You know what I ask people when they say that? Do you know anyone else where that's happened? They say, oh, yeah. Yeah, I can name. And they start ripping off names, at least in their mind's eye. Yeah, he did, she did. And then we turn around and say, but not with us. And maybe that's true, and God forbid that that would happen. But people wander from the faith and pierce themselves with many griefs. What does that mean? That's a poetic phrase that means there's a lot of self-inflicted junk that happens in your life and in my life because of the desire for money. I want to share this story with you by Christine Chakoyan. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing her right. She's from Lake Forest, Illinois. And she writes a powerful piece about her mother's passing. And the reason it touched me, many of you know that I lost my dad in August a year ago. Now my mom's in an assisted living place in Columbus, all the way from Chicago. So it's a lot closer to see her now in Columbus, obviously. But here's what Christine writes. A few years ago, my mom passed away. She died a peaceful death after having lived a good long life. Married to my dad for over 60 years. They raised 5 kids, enjoyed 10 grandchildren, and savored many friendships. After we gathered for a moving funeral, Dad asked us to help sort through Mom's possessions. Though we knew this task was coming, it was surprisingly hard. You see, it was hard because so many things have memories associated with them. The picture from my parents' trip to Mexico. The dress she wore to my wedding, a string of pearls handed down from her mother. Some of her possessions required thought and prompted conversation among her children. What worth did each item have? Not just in financial terms, but in the story they tell. I've noticed when you go through possessions of a loved one, everything has a story. Where did they get this? Oh, that was from that trip. That was from that event. That was from that birthday. And so each possession has a story, not just a financial value. And then there was the rest of her stuff. Now, she says, I want to point this out. She's not slamming her mother in this story, so don't misunderstand this. My mother was not a collector or fashion maven. In fact, when I was growing up, I learned early on from her how to let go of stuff quickly. We lived in a modest 3-bedroom ranch, no garage, no attic. So if we outgrew clothes or toys became obsolete, tools or utensils weren't used, out they went. My parents did not hang on to stuff. So it surprised me when I went to clean out my mom's clothing. Even after distributing her best things to the kids and grandkids, guess how much stuff she had left? 17 pairs of shoes, 21 pairs of pants, 24 belts, 34 dresses, 85 blouses and tops. 85. I was astonished. I didn't blame her. She had Alzheimer's for 10 years, and Dad was overwhelmed taking care of her. But as I stuffed bag after bag after bag of her shoes, pants, belts, dresses, blouses, and tops to give to charity, it got me to thinking, how much stuff have I accumulated over the years? I didn't bother to count the stuff in my closets. I just started getting rid of it. Thank God for the rummage sale. Thank God for the rummage sale. Now, here's the most important thing Christine said. The problem isn't the stuff, but in our relationship to it. I want to repeat that. That's an important statement. The problem isn't the stuff, but in our relationship to it. You either have a relationship with the living God, in my opinion, or you have a relationship to stuff. Which is it for you? And every man, every woman in this room, you know in your gut. You know in your heart of hearts that it's more about your relationship to stuff than it is to the living God. And it's a personal thing. It would be presumptuous of me or anyone to say, I know what your relationship is, because I don't know, nor do you know mine. But that's the choice. That's why Jesus said you can't serve both God and money. The reason Paul tells a young minister named Timothy to deal with this issue of money, because money was evidently an issue back in the city of Ephesus 2,000 years ago, just like it's an issue in Southwest Ohio. in 2015, just like it's an issue in your life and in my life. It all boils down to God or money. Decide. At some point in your life, you're going to have to make that decision. This week, I went to a hospital in Cincinnati to see the son of a good friend that Annie and I had from another church. He's in UC Hospital, University Hospital. Just a freak thing that happened in ICU. And he's married, has children, and when you're in critical condition in a hospital, the only thing that matters is the next report, the next nurse's word, the next word from a doctor, the specialist that's coming in to consult. What's he say? What does she say? And you know what doesn't matter? Things. When you're in ICU at a hospital anywhere, the stuff doesn't matter. It really doesn't. But why is it that we live our lives in such a way that you would think that stuff is the only thing that matters in your life and in my life? What matters is Christ. What matters is your family. What matters is eternity. And the most important decision that a man or woman or young person could make today, 2015, it's no longer the stuff. It's the Christ, the Son of the living God. Let's pray together.